Minister claimed during the last election that the U.S. tariffs were an existential crisis, and I quote, requiring that he immediately be elected to, quote, negotiate a win and get a deal by July 21st. Well, a few days ago, he was asked about the state of those negotiations, and he said there are no issues of importance to discuss. In fact, he said, who cares? Mr. Speaker, we care. We care about the workers who've lost their jobs and don't have paychecks to make their mortgage payments. Why doesn't he care?
Today was one of those days in Parliament where you could feel the electricity in the air. Mark Carney returned to the House of Commons, and what unfolded was nothing short of a full political shutdown of Pierre Poilievre. From the moment Carney walked in, the room shifted, and the moment Poilievre began his first attack, Carney dismantled him fact by fact, line by line, until Poilievre was left red-faced, visibly rattled, and completely exposed in front of the entire chamber. This wasn't just a debate. This was a reality check, a reminder of the difference between a prime minister governing a country and an opposition leader staging drama for clips. And the best part? Carney didn't even have to try. He spoke with calm authority. He admitted where his words could have been better, even though he had no obligation to, something Poilievre has never done. Remember when he falsely accused the RCMP of dishonesty? Poilievre never admitted his mistake. Today showed Canadians exactly who was working for their ego and who was working for this country. Let's start with the first exchange. Poilievre begins with heavy drama, throwing every talking point he could find about tariffs, job losses, and his usual doom and gloom narrative. But Carney responds with calm, controlled strength, reminding Parliament that Canada has the lowest tariffs of any major economy and that real action is underway.
Mr. Speaker, today is a good day. Inflation is down 2.2%. It's for almost 2 years it's running within the Bank of Canada's target. Mr. Speaker, today this is a good month. Unemployment is down again. Jobs are up again. Mr. Speaker, today is a historic day. The Leader of the Opposition and his colleagues have an opportunity to vote for generational investment to build
Even in round one, the room could feel the shift. Poilievre was performing, Carney was governing. And then it happened. The moment Pierre Poilievre thought he had a trap set for Carney, he brought back the who cares line, thinking he could weaponize it again. But he didn't expect what came next. Carney didn't dodge, he didn't deflect, he didn't spin, he owned it. He said clearly and confidently that it was a poor choice of words. No excuses, no denial, just honesty. It was the moment the entire House realized Carney was the bigger person. This moment was powerful. Carney had no obligation to say this. He could have easily ignored it. He could have pivoted. He could have blamed the reporter. But instead, he chose transparency. And because he took responsibility, something Poilievre has refused to do even after lying several times, remember all the drama about Poilievre calling the RCMP dishonest? That realization made the House erupt in applause for Carney. Carney wasn't just leading a debate, he was leading by example. Embarrassed by Carney's honesty, Poilievre tried to double down, repeating his talking points even louder, recycling the who cares narrative and attempting to drag Carney back into the mud. But it didn't work, not today. Because the tone in the House had shifted. People weren't buying it anymore. Poilievre sounded rehearsed, Carney sounded real. Carney fired back with facts, real economic progress, real investment plans, real strategy. He outlined the $1 trillion growth blueprint, the budget the opposition voted against, and the steps being taken to protect Canadian workers. Poilievre had slogans, Carney had substance. This round wasn't close.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's the Prime Minister who said, who cares? When he was asked just over the weekend about the failure to keep his promises on trade since he took office. Not only has he failed to get the promised deal, but American tariffs on aluminum, autos, and steel have doubled. On forestry communities, they have tripled. The Prime Minister says, who cares? All of us on this side of the House care about the communities that are being emptied out in our forestry, the steel workers in Hamilton who don't have jobs to pay their mortgages. We care about those people. Why doesn't he?
This was the moment where Poilievre's arguments completely ran out of substance and he shifted into pure desperation mode. Instead of focusing on policy or facts, he launched into a long, unfocused rant about Brookfield, throwing out accusations, implying personal gain, and trying to connect Carney to anything that sounded dramatic enough to grab attention. The connections he attempted to make weren't just weak, they completely collapsed the moment they left his mouth. It felt like he was reaching for whatever he could find, hoping something, anything would stick. Everyone in the room could sense it. The tone changed, the confidence evaporated, and what was left was a string of accusations that revealed more about Poilievre's frustration than they did about Carney. Meanwhile, Carney didn't flinch for a second. He stayed calm, composed, and almost surgical in the way he dismantled the nonsense being thrown at him. Then came the moment that sealed the entire debate. Carney revealed that the UAE has committed $70 billion in investments into Canada, a real, concrete accomplishment. The House erupted in applause. Poilievre froze in silence, and right there it became clear. The debate wasn't just shifting, it was over. He had office out there. Frustrated and running out of material, Poilievre pushed one last angle, the pipeline question. He tried to frame it as if Carney could simply wave a magic wand and force a pipeline through British Columbia, hoping this would corner him or create a gotcha moment. It was obvious Poilievre believed this line would finally give him the upper hand after losing every round. But what happened next was the opposite of what he expected. Because Carney didn't respond with emotion or defensiveness or political posturing. Instead, he answered with the two things Poilievre consistently struggles to counter: constitutional reality and actual law. Carney calmly explained that no matter who the prime minister is, a pipeline can't be built without the consent and participation of British Columbia and Indigenous rights holders. It's not a matter of opinion, politics, or theatrics. It's simply how the country works. Carney then went further, outlining what responsible leadership actually looks like: collaboration, consultation, and respect for the Constitution, not bulldozing provinces or ignoring Indigenous rights for applause lines.